one of the things you said, there was a lot of points in there. Um, we're really headed towards a global, you know, shaking up of the system in terms of finances, and I think that the public awareness of that right now is very high. Um, I think people are very open to hearing that, especially given the recent history and everything like that. So do you think that there could actually be, I guess, a large interest from the public going into precious metals in the next couple of years that we haven't seen the likes of in a long time?
I do. First of all, if you go back, no one knows the numbers. They're just educated guesses. But if you go back into the first bull market, which I lived through, and went from basically the early 70s to January 21st, 1980, what you saw was a huge run to gold, especially in the last year. Same thing with silver. And they got these astronomically large moves, parabolic moves, actually, at the last few months of the bull market. And I think that's a precursor to what will happen this time. I think you're going to see the biggest run to gold ever. Going back to the idea that maybe at that time, maybe 4 or 5% of the financial assets were devoted to the gold market. Right now, we know what we can measure that about less than 1% is devoted to the gold market. So all you would need is a doubling, 2 or 3%. Let's say we get back to 5%. That would be, or let's say we get to 10%. I mean, make up your own number, make up your own mind, but think it through. In a panic buying mode where you think that there's going to be a currency collapse, you would do anything to protect your purchasing power, which means you rather buy a jar of peanut butter than hold a piece of paper. And when that consciousness hits, it spreads rapidly. It's a psychological event. And at that time, once that moment in time takes place, the velocity of money accelerates dramatically, which means instead of having that 100,000 in the bank or 10,000 in the bank or $100 in the bank or $10 in the bank, almost everyone that catches on will take that money out of the bank and buy something with it. Well, people that have a fairly significant amount of savings and people that even have modest savings will move it into silver, those with modest means, and others will run to gold like they've never run anything in their life. They'll be running for their financial life, literally for their financial life. So you will see a move. And again, it doesn't have to be 90% of the population, it doesn't have to be 10%. It could be just a few percent more than we have now, could take these markets astronomically high. And I'm pretty certain that's what is going to take place because there's really no place to run, no place to hide. Now, in the interim, you have the Anglo-American axis through the London, New York banking system, and of course, the privately held European-owned, primarily European-owned Federal Reserve System that's going to do as much as they can to control the whole paradigm. So if you look at what Mark Carney has said, not only at the United Nations, not only at Davos, and not only at Jackson, Wyoming, all three places where the elite of the elite meet and greet, he has said the same thing, and that is, I reported this in the Morgan Report, and I'm happy to do it for the public now, that they want a digital-only currency, no cash. They want it backed by absolutely nothing. And as far as what are the limits on this currency, they're going to go MMT, modern money theory, where the amount that they digitize doesn't matter whatsoever. They'll just print, as a metaphor, it's obviously is computer-generated digital currency that you're basically forced to use. So they're pretty clear about exactly what they want to implement. And of course, the pushback will be the run to gold, the people that use silver. Some of the cryptos, I favor those that are backed by precious metals, but I'm old school. And I also believe that crypto should have some merit as far as what are they used for. And I'm fine with cryptos that are backed by, cotton, coal, grapeseed juice. I don't care as long as they're tied to something of value. But that's me. But to have something that's just a digital replacement. In other words, if it's a digital replacement, that's what the Bank of England's basically saying they want. And they've got the power, unfortunately, which means possibly, I'm not saying it's probable, I'm saying it's possible that they could say, look, you can have your XYZ crypto, and you can use it peer to peer. But if you want to buy anything in our domain, a house, pay rent, buy food, get a car, do transportation, or have your cell phone, anything that you absolutely must have, you got to do it in our digital currency. And I think that's the way they'll go. I don't think they'll outlaw any particular currency. They'll just make it so non-useful that unless you're buying, trading cards or whatever, I don't want to go too far down the rabbit hole, but you get the idea. They want control. They want control to the absolute nth degree. They don't only want control of everything you think, do, and say. They want every transaction whatsoever, maybe even at a garage sale, to be digitized so they know about it. That's the goal.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and that would be basically like a global one world currency, digital currency. Yes. I mean, while you were saying that, I was immediately thinking, obviously, in terms of like the, historical gold and silver confiscation or whatever happened in the 1930s in terms of making it illegal to privately own gold and silver. But you don't think they would do that with gold, silver, and crypto? You think they would just basically make it very inconvenient to use, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, it's, I can't rule it out. If I say I'm open-minded, I should remain so. And is it confiscation possible? Sure. Is it likely? Very unlikely. And what happens, just because Carney wants what I outlined doesn't mean that's what's going to happen. I mean, they might get to a situation where the banking elite determine they really need to get the public on board, and therefore they're going to back it with gold. But their backing would be something that I wouldn't trust. I'll just speak for myself. It's 40% backed by gold. Well, how do we know? Yeah. But it may be sort of the ace in the hole that they'll need in order to, gain that, confidence in the system. Once you've lost confidence, it's very difficult to get it back. And they'll know if the run to gold starts before they've got plan A, B, and C, then they're in trouble. But I think they've got plan A, B, C, D, and E already in the works. So they'll have their circuit breakers, bank closures, stock market stops. Oh, by the way, we're having an emergency meeting, which they've already scripted out. And then we're going to do this and for the public good and your own safety, and to make sure the financial systems stay together and are for your benefit. This is what we're going to do, so be prepared, folks. The only thing outside the system really are the precious metals. I think the cryptos are more easily traced and tracked than most people think. I mean, when you go to Coinbase or one of those type of facilitators, I mean, it's a KYC, know your customer, and they know just about everything. And even if you use a VPN, they'll figure out your URL if they really want to. So again, I'm not against cryptos. In fact, I'm pretty favorable, as I've said, to some of them. But the idea being that the most anonymous way to transact in a real asset base is actually with a silver coin or gold coin.
Yeah. And I think that would work basically because, if there was, given the economic situation right now, if they said basically like we need to combine the euro and the dollar into one currency or something in order to save the economy or something like that, like I could, and a lot of people have a lot of skin in the game. They don't want to lose their money, so they're going to go along with it because they're like, otherwise there's going to be another crash and whatever. So it's definitely a possibility. So
I'm not trying to bring you down. I could look. I've been at this a long time, and people have asked, how do you stay, positive and optimistic? And I'm not always, obviously.